Welcome to the Cumberland County Virtual Information Session for the American Rescue Plan Small Business Economic Assistance Program. My name is Ty Vaught, and I'm the Management Analyst in the County Manager's Office here in Cumberland County. So I'm also joined by our Assistant County Manager, Sally Shutt, and she's going to help me navigate through the questions as we go through the webinar. But we were also planning to have our county legal staff on site. They were unable to attend, but we do have our assistant county attorney, Kevin McGuckin, who has joined us virtually and will also assist us in the process of answering your questions. And I'll repeat this during the session, but we want to take this time to go through the information and go through the basis of this small business program. And we want to also answer your questions. In this particular format and the live format, your questions will be answered, but we want to kind of stick to the questions related to the framework and the approach and understanding of the policy of this program. If you have a question that kind of goes outside of that and it's more specific to your line of business, we still want your question, but we want to also be fair to you in this process and make sure that we give you the most comprehensive, complete answer. And so if we cannot answer your question in this setting, then we will for sure answer that question in the next day or so and include the answer in our FAQ, our frequently asked questions, which is located on our website, which is cumberlandcountync.gov/ARP under the small business tab. And so you will see that the date on that FAQ was updated to have a sense of when the last time we updated the questions.
As previously stated, today's session will consist of a presentation and a discussion phase. Today's presentation will cover the ARPA CSLFRF overview, the purpose of the funds, the county's approach in administering these funds, how to apply, the sections of the application, the eligible expense categories, the application review criteria, the associated attachments that go along with the application, and a few helpful tips to submitting a successful application. On March 11, 2021, President Biden signed into law the stimulus bill titled the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. This act appropriated $1.9 trillion to be used to speed up the country's recovery from the economic and health effects of the COVID-19 pandemic and the ongoing recession. First proposed on January 14, 2021. This package builds upon many of the measures in the CARES Act of 2020 signed by then President Trump and in the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021. Of that, $1.9 trillion, $362 billion was appropriated for coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds, of which $65.2 million has been allocated to Cumberland County. The Cumberland County Board of Commissioners has appropriated $3.5 million of this allocation to be used for the Small Business Economic Assistance Program that we are discussing today. So what is the purpose of this program, and why has the Board of County Commissioners put it in place? The purpose of these funds are to be allocated specifically to small businesses in Cumberland County that have been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic and to aid in a strong and equitable recovery. And I think it's important to elaborate just a little on what is intended by the phrase strong and equitable recovery. When we say strong, we mean that the purpose of this program is to provide the type of financial assistance that will help businesses that have the zeal and perseverance and are already taking efforts to stabilize and sustain their businesses while also assessing if the business is sustainable. Equity refers to our approach in targeting this program to those that need it most. We understand that there are and have been many programs geared towards small businesses, but due to the constraints associated with those programs, many small businesses have been excluded or deemed ineligible to receiving funds. It is the will of Cumberland County and the Board of Commissioners that these funds be used to touch as many small businesses as we can, especially those that were not in a place to receive funding that they needed from other sources and programs. So like I mentioned before, Cumberland County is committed to investing these funds into the small businesses of Cumberland County. And we are approaching this by identifying and directly addressing the need and negative impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on our small businesses here in Cumberland County. We want to support equitable outcomes for the most impacted populations, have a lasting impact. So we want businesses that we provide assistance to be in a position to remain in business. We want to make sure that the funds are used in accordance with CSLFRF, federal and state guidelines, and meet a public purpose. And ultimately monitor and ensure that any funds released to small businesses are in line with provisions of the contract between that business and the county. There are 3 ways to access the small business application and 4 ways to submit it. The application can be accessed electronically at cumberlandcounty.nc.gov/ARP under the Small Business tab. There you will find a PDF version as well as the online web application. You can also pick up a printed version at any of the Cumberland County Public Library branches. You can submit your application by completing the web application and just clicking the submit button, and the application will automatically be forwarded to be reviewed. Applications can also be emailed to arpsmb@co.cumberland.nc.us. They can be delivered to the Cumberland County Courthouse, which is located at 117 Digg Street, Fayetteville, North Carolina, on the 5th floor, room 507. If you would like to mail it, please address it to Cumberland County, SBEAP, attention ARP Administration, Post Office Box 1829, Fayetteville, North Carolina 28302. The small business application is comprised of 11 sections: business information, business description, economic impact, financial impact, proposed use of funds, application to other forms of assistance or funding sources, owner information, conflicts of interest, job hiring/retention, acknowledgement of required assurances, and certification. Briefly touching on each section, the business information section asks for your business's name, if there's a DBA, the mailing address, phone numbers and emails associated with the business, and the operating address if it's different from the mailing address. Federal EIN number, or if it's a sole proprietor, the owner's social security number, your business's formation date, the type of business, whether it's an LLC, partnership, sole proprietor, etc. There's also a yes or no question regarding whether your business is in bankruptcy proceedings, if the business is subject to criminal or civil fines or penalties, tenancy information, including whether you're the owner of the building that you operate in, or if you are a tenant who is leasing the property, and if you have business insurance and what type you have. In the business description section, we ask you to indicate the nature of the business, types of product services, and customer profile. because we want to know what type of business you have and what it is that you do. And this assists us in determining the public impact that your business has and helps us identify your business's place in the community. The next section is the economic impact section, and it asks the question, please describe the degree to which your business has been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. List specific examples and whether your business had to close. So this section is very helpful to us in determining your need and if you had a business close due to the pandemic, which is something that you may not have had any control over. We also ask to what degree your business has been able to maintain employees during this COVID-19 pandemic, and whether the award will help your business do so. So we want to not only impact small businesses, but the people that they employ, especially those folks who are in low to moderate income households and rely on their jobs and job security. Then we ask, please describe how your business positively adds to the quality of life in Cumberland County. Small businesses are the lifeblood of our community, and everybody has a story. How does your business fit into that story? And how have you contributed to making Cumberland County the place that it is? The following section is the financial impact section. Here we request information regarding gross revenues from March 3rd, 2021, which is the date set forth in the guidance in CSLFRF, to the present. And we are also requesting that you include a total figure of what your business's revenues were for the same period in the prior year so that we can make a comparison. And then we're asking what your proposed use of these funds are. And so we've broken out these funds into categories which include payroll, wages, and the related taxes, and occupancy like the business's mortgages, lease, utilities, etc. And then based upon the policy and the guidance laid out for the Small Business Economic Assistance Program, there may be other needs that you are able to highlight, and there's space for those as well. We just request that you indicate what they are and then also include the requested amount of financial assistance requested up to $50,000. It's important for us to point out that your request needs to be tied back to the proposed use of funds. And again, it must be used for an eligible purpose to include payroll, mortgages, rent, costs associated with mitigation or prevention of COVID-19, such as physical plant changes to enable social distancing, enhancing your cleaning efforts, barriers or partitions, or COVID-19 vaccination, testing, or contact tracing programs. It also includes technical assistance such as counseling or other services to assist with business planning needs and other operating costs as a result of the public health emergency and measures taken to contain the spread of coronavirus. Remember that needs of businesses will be assessed from the date of March 3rd, 2021 and on. The next section is the application to other forms of assistance or funding sources. In this section, you can either respond yes or no if you have received prior federal, state, or local aid related to the COVID-19 pandemic. If you check no, you can move on to the next section. But if you check yes, we ask that you provide the amount that you requested and whether you've received it or it's pending and the name of the program that you're receiving funding from. For example, the SBA Paycheck Protection Program. By answering this question yes, you will not automatically be disqualified. However, in the screening process, to be fair and equitable, we will review applications that have not received any outside funding prior to reviewing those that have, but they will all be reviewed. But it may impact the order in which they are reviewed. In the owner information section, we request basic information on the owner or owners of the business to include their name, their street address, their mailing address, whether the owner is at least age 18, the percentage of ownership in the business, your industry experience in years, race, ethnicity, veteran status, gender, and whether the owner is a single head of household. We ask that this information be completed for each owner of the business if there are multiple owners. In the conflicts of interest section, we ask that you read the statement that is there and understand what a conflict of interest is, and if one is discovered or arises, what the preceding actions and remedies are. In the job hiring/retention section, we ask you to estimate the number of FTEs or full-time employee jobs that will be created through this program. And then we ask, of those, how many will be low to moderate income persons? So for example, if your intention is to create 5 jobs, you would write 5 jobs on that first line. And if all 5 are intended to be low to moderate income persons, you would indicate 5 again. There is also a section to identify the number of FTEs retained and how many of those are low to moderate income households. In the acknowledgement of required assurances section, we ask that you read each bullet point there. It is very important that you read this section and understand. We ask that each owner sign and date the assurance section if the business does have multiple owners. They also have the option of granting signing authority to one of the owners to sign on their behalf if all are not available to sign, or if you're completing the web application because it does not permit you to save, and it may not be practical for you to have all the owners present to sign in this format. However, this is just the application phase. Once the review takes place and we move on to the contracting phase, then we will require that all owners of the business sign that contractual obligation. And in the final section, which is the certification, we ask that you read and sign this section, and as well we ask you to include your name and your title as you did in the previous assurance section. So we have covered the eligible categories in previous slides, but I wanted to cover those types of expenses that are not eligible for this program. You may not pay off non-business debt, purchase personal items not associated with the business, finance political activities, or pay off taxes and fines. When we mention taxes here, we are excluding those that are associated with payroll, which was stated in a previous slide. We have already talked about some of the review criteria, but I wanted to cover a few others so you would have an idea how applications will be assessed. So these are the types of questions we are asking during our review. Is the business located in a qualified census tract or a QCT? Do at least 51% of the total business employees come from low to moderate income households? Will the infusion of funds impact the success of the business? Are all owners at least 18 years of age? Is there a business bank account open in the business's name? Is the business registered and in good standing with the North Carolina Secretary of State? Is the business or any of its owners currently in bankruptcy? Is the business current on all taxes? Is there sufficient general liability insurance coverage? Does the business meet the county's definition of a small business of 250 employees or less, including the owners? And was the business in operation on or before March 3rd, 2021, and still in operation? Depending on how you plan to complete the application, you will need to submit documentation along with it. If you are completing the web-based version, the attachments will be available at the beginning of the application. But if you are emailing, delivering, or mailing your application, be sure to include these as an email attachment or printed copies along with the printed application. Please submit all attachments that are applicable to your ownership and business type. Here are some general but helpful tips to consider while you are completing your application. Start early. Be a good storyteller. Focus more on solutions than problems. Double check your numbers. Pay attention to detail. Be prompt and responsive. Make good use of your waiting time.
And so I will go directly into our first question. Can we see the slide with the 11 sections again, please? So on the application sections, so there are 11 application sections, and it begins with business information, business description, economic impact, financial impact, proposed use of funds, application to other forms of assistance and funding sources, the owner information, conflicts of interest, job hiring and retention, acknowledgement of required assurances, and certification. And so if you go onto the county website, again, cumberlandcountync.gov/ARP, look under the small business tab. You can pull up, if you're not prepared to log into the web application because it does not allow you to save, and so you will want to do that in one sitting, please go to the PDF version on that website, and it has the long form of the application, and you can go section by section to make sure that you have the proper information for that section. The next question, once you are approved, is this considered a loan or grant that will need to be paid back? That's a good question. So this program is not a loan program in the sense that a loan had to be paid back. We don't want these monies back. This money was allocated to Cumberland County for the purpose of COVID-19 mitigation and resiliency. And the Board of Commissioners have put this particular program in place to help our small businesses. And so the way we're approaching this is as a financial award. I wouldn't even refer to it as a grant program. So with the financial award, depending on how that expense arises, whether it's a previous expense that's come into play after March 3rd, 2021, or it's an ongoing expense. We talked briefly in the presentation about having an agreement between the county and business owners. And so in that agreement, in the application, the business owner, you would have identified and made us aware of the type of funding that you're looking for. And so basically, all we want to do is ensure that the funding has gone to whatever that ask was, and that it's properly been dispersed in that manner. And so this is not a loan or a grant. This is a financial award, and the majority of it is going to be on a reimbursement basis as the cost arises, and it's been approved in that agreement between the county and the business owner. That's how funds are being tendered and expended between the two entities. There's a question here: why are the funds limited to low-income business owners? If a business is a sole proprietor and the owner works a second job to make ends meet, they will be over these limits. So there are multiple criteria involved with in review of these applications. And so it's not a one size fits all. Depending on, so when we're talking about low to moderate income, we could also be referring to the types of folks that you are employing. And so on this particular slide, this job hiring retention slide, it's asking you specifically, how many jobs do you want to create? How many of those are low income persons? How many are you retaining? How many are low income persons? And so it's not so much that the business owner is a low income person who owns the business, but that the folks who are being employed by the business are low to moderate income folks. That's an important piece in this. We want, again, people to get back to work. We want people to have job security. And not only is this program about helping business owners, it's about helping the folks that business owners employ.
I do not see Fayetteville as an area for where the business could be located. Is this correct, or is a Fayetteville-based business allowed?
So Fayetteville-based businesses are allowed. So this program is a Cumberland County program. And Cumberland County, Fayetteville is the county seat of Cumberland County. And so it is involved in that grouping of Cumberland County.
Would nonprofits qualify?
So as of right now, the policy that governs this particular program defines small businesses as for-profit business. So as written at this point, a nonprofit entity would not qualify for this program. And I just want to make one point as well. I've been getting some emails and phone calls concerning applications that have been submitted through the web application. And so we are aware that that application is not currently generating a response or confirmation email. And so I'm working with our county ITS department to work that issue out so that your application will trigger a response email. But please know that we are getting them. It's just not generating an email at this point. So next question, what sort of timeline for award are you looking at? So it's a bit of a process. And so I'm sure everyone can appreciate that this is a manual process. And so there are staff who are working to process through this particular program. And so we are convening those staff very soon for the eligibility determination screening phase. And so what we hope to do is to screen these applications and determine eligibility very quickly. And then from that stage, contact business owners concerning where they are in that stage, whether they are, everything is there and we can move forward. If there's some questions and we have to pin for some information, or if outright the business as it presents does not qualify for this program. So once we can make that determination, then we can move you on to the next phase and move on to, like I said before, we can engage our county legal department with the agreement phase. And so we don't anticipate it being a very lengthy process, but as I said in that final slide about tips for successful applications, I think it's very important that if you're contacted about information or something that's needed to complete the application, please be responsive. I think that's going to be the big driver in this program being expedited and funding being allocated as soon as possible. So is there a deadline for submitting the application? So as of right now, there is not a deadline for submission of the application. And like I said at the beginning, this particular program, the Board of County Commissioners has allocated $3.5 million to this program. And so that sounds like a lot of money, but as applications come in, we're reviewing those, and that funding could go quickly. And so I think it is important to not wait and to get your application in as soon as possible. because we don't know how long funding is going to last or stretch. And so, no, there's no deadline at this point, but I would not wait. So if you don't get approved for the requested amount you asked for, is the application denied, or can you be approved for a lower amount? And that's an interesting question. And I think that answer, and I hate to give this type of answer, but I think it depends. It depends on what you're asking for, and if possibly maybe you're asking for one funding for 2 or 3 different uh, items. And so maybe one of those items you requested, we're not able to fund, but maybe we can fund the other. I can see a situation like that where there could be some consideration there. But as far as I guess the best advice we can give is your application, the proposed funding amount really needs to be tied back to a specific COVID-19 issue. And so it needs to make sense for your business and be a, I think that's the easy way to say it. It needs to make sense for your business. I think on the other side of that, I would not rely on the review to say, hey, we're going to approve this lower amount. I think it's really important as you, the applicant business owner, to ensure that what you're asking for you have justified, and that's the purpose of that section with the proposed funding, as well as the other sections like the economic impact section and the description section, where you have the opportunity to tell your business's story, where you are, where you've been, where you're going, and that can kind of help you as you are forming your ask for this particular program. Is family child care homes eligible? So I think that's another, it depends on how that particular business is set up. I think if you meet the definition of a small business, the way it's defined here in our policy, for-profit business, and you meet the 250 employee cap, and you identify as a small business, I don't think that there's any eligibility issues there, just on the face of the type of business that it is, because we have not explicitly excluded any type of businesses outside of businesses owned by Cumberland County employees and officers of Cumberland County. There are multiple ways. We try to make this application as accessible as we can. And so if you are a paper person and you want the paper application in hand, you can go to any of our 7 library branches across the county and pick up a paper application there. Again, if you would like to go to the county website, we have it in 2 forms there. There's a PDF version where you can do it from the comfort of your home, and you can print that and send it back to us through email, mail, or walk it into the office, and we'll gladly take it from you there. And you can also complete that web application on the county website. And again, right now, it's not giving a confirmation, but we hope to have that fixed within the next day or so. So who are the decision makers, meaning the individuals who are making this decision? Not sure if this question was asked. So the folks who are making this decision, who are doing the review process, are part of county staff, and we have strategically brought together individuals across different disciplines and county departments. And so that's made up of individuals, all the way from our procurement and finance to individuals who deal with these types of programs, across the county. And so there is a a vast discipline across the county that will be looking into these applications, and also the rubric. I'll say that to kind of let you know that this is not a subjective process. It's very objective. The rubric is the same for all, and so they will follow that rubric as they go to make sure, like I said, things are there. And I'll say this again if I didn't already say it. The goal of this program is not to exclude anybody. We want to, like I said earlier, we want to touch as many small businesses as possible. And so we're not looking at your business with the purpose or the intent to exclude you from funding. We hope that you receive the funding. It's just important, again, that you submit the applicable documents and that you are responsive when further information is needed. So for payroll history, so in the slide for, I believe it's the financial impact slide, we're asking for the information. So the date, the magical date, so to speak, is the March 3rd, 2021. And so we need the information for your payroll before that date. Preferably, we would look for maybe about a year's worth of information, and then the time after that. And so whatever form that you have that in. And so we're not asking you to create documents that don't necessarily exist. And so if you use a particular software function like a QuickBooks or something like that, and it comes in a certain format, use that format. If you use a different format, whatever format you use, that will provide the needed information. I think that is sufficient. I don't think that we should put a particular subset on that.
Same question for pre-COVID history.
Right. So what I think, so that kind of goes, so kind of what I said, but I think the March 3rd, 2021 date and before that year is going to be the pre date information we're looking for, because you kind of got to remember that the American Rescue Plan is almost like a continuation of the CARES funding. It kind of picks up where CARES ends.
What if you didn't have a building space in 2020 and now you do in 2022? Will you be able to use the rent expenses of this year on your application?
So if you are going to request information regarding rent, mortgage, or utilities, I would include that in the I would include that ask in the application for it to be reviewed. And so again, these funds are meant to impact businesses for costs associated with COVID-19, March 3rd, 2021 and on. And so we're talking about at the and on period, then you would want to include that ask in your application.
Was the amount of insurance on the business one of the determining factors? If you do not have insurance at the moment, is that a reason for denial?
And so I think that's another it depends question, depending on how your business is set up. Those are, that type of question, I would definitely want to talk with, if you have a CPA, that will be a question to ask your CPA about your business setup for sure. But if your business is a business that requires insurance, I think that's a question for your industry that you kind of have to determine for yourself. But I would not say either way if it would deem you ineligible. I think it needs to, again, make sense and be applicable to your business and business type. And again, as we answer these questions, we will review these questions again more than more than just myself will review these questions. And so if I'm lacking in my answer some way, be rest assured that the full answer will be included within the next day or so in the FAQ on the county website.
We will also have the slides posted to the website in addition to a recording of this webinar.
And so after this webinar ends, we will go through all the questions and we will provide more thoughtful, in-depth answers if I was lacking in my response as well. You can continue to ask us questions through our small business email. It's located on this screen here. That email is arpsmb@co.cumberland, cumberland.nc.us, and we will respond to your question. But I would encourage you to send your question to that email, because as questions come in and we respond to questions, we want to also give the benefit to other individuals who may have the same question by including that on our frequently asked questions page. So how long is the review process before you all make a decision of distribution of funds? I don't have a hard date for you, but again, it is not our intention to hold on to this funding. We want to release it as soon as we can, but of course there are requirements and regulation that follows this type of funding. These funds do originate from the federal government, and so there are standards that we have to uphold, reporting that has to be done. But again, as the owner of your business, if you're responsive and you're providing the information that we need, I don't see why there will be any issue or any lag with allocating this funding and starting you on receiving your financial award. Once your application is approved, how soon are the funds dispersed? And does it have to be a business bank account? That's a very good question. So once the funds are approved, I talked about a little earlier. So in that agreement between the county and the business owner, whatever funding that you requested and was approved will be outlined in that agreement. And so that could happen several different ways. And I'll just give a brief example. I could imagine that if you have expenses that predate this program, and let's say they took place in March or April of 2021, and that expense already exists, and you're wanting to have that expense funded. That's one scenario. You may have a scenario where the need is a more current need, and it's going to be a future ask, or a now going into the future ask. That may be a situation where you're looking at more of a reimbursement type situation where, hey, I'm asking for X amount in this, but I have invoices or I have some type of record. And so I think it's going to depend. So I think it's going to depend on when the ask takes place and what it is. And one of the questions we are looking for, so on that slide, I think it was slide 10, there was a question, is there a business bank account open in the business's name? And so we understand that depending on how your business is set up, you could have right now be operating out of your regular personal business account or a separate business account if you're a sole proprietor, so to speak. So I think it is important that you have some type of delineation between what is your business and what is your personal funds, because remember, we need to make sure and ascertain what is a business cost or expense or need, and separate that from the personal, because that personal expense would be deemed ineligible. So we want to make sure that we have some type of curtain or separation between those two uh, funding sources or funding types.
If an application is missing something that might not have had all documents submitted at the time of turning it in, is that grounds for denial?
So this is where it's important again for business owners to be responsive. And so again, I'll probably say this, probably 30 more times. The goal is not to deem anybody ineligible who should be eligible. And so if something is missing, we hope to be able to reach out, whichever form that may be, whether it's sending you a letter, pending you for information, whatever form that takes, to give you the opportunity to make sure that information is there. But we understand that sometimes things are left out of files or things are overlooked. And so we're not, this is not a got you. We're trying to give everyone the opportunity to get the proper applicable information in so that we can make a well-informed decision on whether to move that application forward.
After being awarded, do you need to provide information later on how all the funds were used?
Right. So, there are reporting requirements, and so again, that could take different forms. And so, depending on what the ask is, that documentation or information will take a different form, and that would for sure be something that will be discussed, or the expectation would be set between the county and the business owner in that agreement phase. And so, you already know what the expectation is for you to maintain proper documentation for yours and our records.
Does the general liability insurance need to be active?
Right. So if you have active policy is a current policy, and so if it's not active, then it's not current. And so yes, if you're saying that you have an active policy and it's needed for your business and your industry, then it would need to be an active policy and stay current through the duration of this program.
Because the business needs to still be in business.
Yes, thank you, Sally.
Yes, it must still be in business.
Right. Your business needed to exist before March 3rd, 2021 and still be operational today. What if you changed your business name in that time frame? Does it matter? I think you need to document. So I think I don't want to lead your question, but I think your question may be your business name changed after March 3rd, 2021, if I can kind of lead there. So there's a chain of documents there. And so I think that you would need to have sufficient document showing that it's the same business and the business has just changed, whether the name was completely changed or there's now a DBA with that business where you changed the operating name. But I think that you can easily show it's the same business. We just gone through a rebranding or a name change. So if I lost employees due to COVID and my payroll is lower, do I ask for more money for employee retention and business growth, or do I ask for less money since we are paying less people? I think that's a determination that you would have to come to on your own. How do you want to format that? It depends on, I think, again, I think it's how you want to form that ask. I think it's without me leading and giving an answer, I think it depends on the form of that ask takes. And so I think that you should make that determination with yourself in your company, and then form that particular proposed fund use in your application.
All right, and this will be the final question. If my business is now expanding, can the funding be used for the upgrades? For example, equipment, PPE, etc.
So you'll remember that on the eligible categories page, I want to say it was slide 9, we talked about the eligible expenses being things like payroll, mortgage, lease, rent, mitigation of and prevention of COVID-19, technical assistance, and other operating costs. And so what's not here, I would also motion you towards the county's website again, cumberlandcountync.gov/ARP. And on that small business tab, that page, you can see the county's small business economic assistance program policy. And that policy may be able to also guide you in your thinking as you ask the question of yourself, would this be an allowable cost? So I really appreciate the questions that have come in today. As questions come in while we're closing out, like I said, we will answer those questions, and we will include those questions on the FAQ along with the questions that were answered today. Again, you can email us at any time at arpsmb@co.cumberland.nc.us. And on the small business tab on the county website, you will see where we have updated the frequently asked questions. As well, we will include this webinar there for you to view again. And if you know business owners, which I'm sure you do because you all network within this community, please point them to this webinar if you feel that it's been beneficial to you, so that they can also be a part of this program, the application process. And again, we really appreciate you hanging in there with us in this late hour, and we hope to be hearing from you soon, and we wish you good luck in a speedy recovery as we come out of this COVID-19 pandemic, and you have a great evening.